When you mention Rolleiflex, one image comes to mind: a high-quality, expensive, medium-format twin-lens reflex or TLR film camera. If you are really keen on the evolution of Rolleiflex medium-format cameras, you will know about the excellent Rolleiflex SL36, which was medium-format but SLR, not TLR. You might also recognize the Rolleiflex SLX, SLX2 and the rest of that family, which we covered in this video. These high-quality medium-format cameras are largely responsible for the fame and reputation of the brand. The viewer numbers on this channel indicate a lot of interest in the name Rollei. Our most popular videos are 7 versions of the Rolleiflex 35 and then 8 versions of Rolleiflex 35 plus the special editions. Those were 35mm film cameras. That design from 1966 for a compact full metal, fully mechanical, fully manual camera eventually died out. Although we hear that a modern version of Rolleiflex 35 is being designed by Mint in Hong Kong. We will see and we will cover it here. What's missing is the whole range of Rolleiflex 35mm SLR cameras. There's very little on this subject on YouTube in the English language. There's more in Japanese and Spanish. So I'll do my duty to tell you what you've been missing. This Rolleiflex SL35 was their entry into the 35mm SLR market in the 70s. Rollei saw the writing on the wall. Let's face it, the TLR concept was ultimately doomed, along with those clunky press cameras. The TLRs with waist level, dim viewfinder, reversed image, only 12 shots, slow film loading process, and parallax problem was only for the hardcore fans. The market was increasingly dominated by Japanese and SLR cameras, both medium format and 35mm. They were rapidly innovating and leapfrogging one another. So, what's a prestigious but slightly complacent German camera maker supposed to do? The Japanese are just too good. There are a few options. Option 1. Give up and stop making consumer cameras. Well, Zeiss Ikon took that option. The question was, what would happen to the numerous camera designs they owned, including Voigtlander? All wasted? Option 2. Marry a Japanese manufacturer to save the brand and hope for the best. Good idea. Leica took that option, and then married Minolta to produce some more modern cameras. Option 3. If you can't beat them, join them. Rollei thought, yeah, that's a good option. Let's give it a try. Let's produce our own SLR and ride the wave of 35mm SLR popularity. There's a chance that those who bought and loved our popular Rolleiflex 35 compact cameras back in 1966 will stay with us, right? The result was Rolleiflex SL35, introduced in 1970. This first model had only stop-down metering. It was made in chrome and black in Germany and Singapore. According to our camera chronology chart, in 1970, hardly any new cameras were released, but competition was strong. The best seller was this Pentax Spotmatic. Minolta was also going strong with this excellent SRT-101. Canon had the unusual Pellix QL with fixed semi-transparent mirror instead of the moving reflex mirror. The prestigious consumer camera to have was this Nikormat FTN, which we reviewed here. Olympus OM1, which we also reviewed here, came along 2 short years later. Let's sort by Rolleiflex. The next model from Rollei was SL350, which came out in 1974, with the same body shape but had open aperture metering like all competing cameras. This model was made only in Germany in chrome and black. All later models were made only in Singapore. To everyone's shock, in early 70s, Zeiss Ikon stopped camera production. Then in 1972, Rollei saw the chance and acquired the Voigtlander brand from Zeiss, including its camera designs. Then in 1976, Rollei introduced the next generation of SLR cameras, the SL35M, based on the Voigtlander design from Icarex 35S or SL706, but with plastic top and base plates. There were no technological breakthroughs though. SL35M was also rebranded as Voigtlander VSL1. Same year, 1976, SL35ME was introduced with aperture priority automatic shutter, This model was also rebranded as Voigtlander VSL2. The final model in 1978 was SL35E, which was smaller and lighter. Its Voigtlander version was called VSL3E. For now, we will continue with the original first-generation Rolleiflex SL35 made in Germany in 1970. This is a full metal, fully mechanical camera. It only needs a battery for the light meter. It's not in the same league as its professional contemporaries and systems cameras such as Nikon F2 or Canon F1. It is closer to the offerings of Pentax, Minolta and Olympus. So, Rolleiflex SL35 started with a modest ambition. Designed for a fully manual operation, it uses the term automatic, but it is not what you think, as you will see. Here's the very thin advanced lever. It has a short standoff position of around 20 degrees and a very long swing of around 170 degrees. Here's the combined shutter dial and ASA selector. Shutter speeds go from 1 second to 1/1000th of a second plus B. Shutter sync is at 1/60th of a second. ISO can be selected by lifting off the same dial and rotating. After so many years, some of these get stuck, and you may have to rotate to the very end in one direction or the other, then backtrack to select the ISO. The ISO range is from 12 to 6400. In the center, we have the shutter release button, which can also take a cable release. On this camera, none of these three elements were working. I pulled the whole thing apart and found a lot of solidified lubricant and rust. I cleaned them with cotton tips and lighter fluid and reassembled. Now it works well. Film counter is on the left side, which is unusual. It counts from 1 to 36, which is marked in red as a hint for the end of the film. Then it gives you 2 bonus numbers to 38 in case you're lucky to get 1 or 2 extra shots by loading the film in the darkroom. Then it stops counting, but the camera doesn't stop working regardless of the film counter. So what's this huge black plastic button then? This activates the light meter needle inside the viewfinder as well as performing lens stop down. Yes, you guessed it. It does the light metering in stop down mode, not through the open aperture. This would have put this camera instantly behind all the Japanese competitors. At least they made it easy by having only one button to do both. Here's the tripod socket. This is a battery chamber cover. It was designed to take the problematic PX625 mercury batteries, which are banned due to the toxicity and therefore no longer made. But today you can get alkaline versions of them at a slightly higher voltage. It does not seem to make much difference to this camera. You can search for them on the PX625A. If you want to be sure, you can deliberately overexpose color films by one stop and you should be okay, whether or not the camera has a problem with a slightly higher voltage. Other alternatives are also available and you will find them on this video. On the front, we have 2 flash sync ports. This one is for flash bulbs. You can just forget it. This one is for X-Flash, for electronic flash that you should use today. Use this one at any shutter speed up to 1/60th of a second. There's no hot shoe, but there's an accessory cold shoe that you can mount on top with 2 small screws on the back. This red button is for lens release. This is the self-timer lever, which is set for 12 seconds. It is not activated by the normal shutter release, but by a small button right behind the self-timer lever. The lens is interchangeable and has a proprietary bayonet mount called QBM, or Quick Bayonet Mount. There are adapters for M42 or Leica thread mount to also fit onto this camera. The lenses made for the QBM mount included Carl Zeiss, Rollei, Rolleiflex, Schneider and Voigtlander. As you see through the lens and light metering is always in the stop-down mode, those lenses work perfectly and instantly on this body. Here's the usual focusing ring, and this is the aperture dial. Here's a slider which goes from M to A or manual to auto. No, this is not like a Canon FD lens. The camera does not select the aperture for you automatically. This auto refers to auto aperture viewing. You always select the aperture manually. But through the lens you see at the widest aperture and brightest view. Then when you press the shutter release button, it narrows down the aperture to your selection. Take the picture and return to the full aperture again. They refer to this as the auto mode. So under almost all normal conditions, this slider is on auto mode. There are very few reasons to use the manual mode. For example, when there's something like an extension tube or bellows between the lens and the camera, or if you want to mount the lens backward. The viewfinder has only the focusing screen and the light meter needle. There is no information on the aperture or shutter selected. This is not unusual for consumer cameras of that era. The center circle is a microprism surrounded by a matte ring. Turn the focusing ring until there is no blurring in the ring or shimmering in the microprism. Light metering is center weighted. 90% of the measurement is over this almost semicircular shape, presumably to avoid the bright sky. The needle moves by the selection of shutter speed or aperture or ISO. The target is the center. Select the right ISO, then select a reasonable shutter speed, then rotate the aperture dial until the needle is centered. It helps that aperture can be selected between the f-stops for perfect exposure. The best part of this camera is the lenses designed by Carl Zeiss and made by Rollei. These had the HFT or High Fidelity Transfer multi-layer anti-reflection coating system co-developed with Zeiss. It was almost identical in performance to earlier Carl Zeiss T-Star coating. They also sold some SL35s with the Schneider lenses, just as they did for a small production run of Rolleiflex when Zeiss could not catch up with the demand. Here we have the 50mm planar f1.8 standard lens and the 135mm Tele-Tessar f4, both from Carl Zeiss series. Any lenses which were made in Germany by Zeiss for Rollei actually had the Zeiss T-Star coating. However, they were deliberately labeled as HFT coating just to keep the marketing consistent. Film loading is very simple in the Japanese style. Pull up the rewind crank, open the back. Put the film cartridge on the left side, stretch the film over the sprocket, put the end of the film into the slot. Wind the lever a couple of times. The take-up spool will counter-rotate. Make sure the film is straight and close the back. Take a couple of blank shots and you're ready to go. To rewind, press the rewind button and rotate the crank in the direction shown. When you feel the end of the film released, you can stop right there and have a little bit of the film left out. Alternatively, crank a bit more and the whole film goes in. This Rolleiflex SL35 was made in both chrome and black. In my opinion, just like Rolleiflex, this design looks best in chrome. In the hand and looking at it closely, I find it very elegant. The proportions are beautiful. Given the simplicity of this camera and the fact that it did not have many of the features of its Japanese contemporaries, I didn't have great expectations from this camera. I was going to mentally classify it in the same category as a lowest end Pentax or similar, but less commercially successful. However, after a couple of photo sessions using Cinestill 50, I was pleasantly shocked. I put it down to the lenses. The sharpness and color rendition of these Zeiss design lenses was exceptional. Just look at it. These are not manipulated. They are scanned with Epson Perfection 600 photo using Silverfast 9 without Negafix or extra contrast or the auto mode, then turned it to positive with Negative Lab Pro on the standard Frontier setting. No further manipulation in the Lightroom. I'm super happy with every picture in the series. So, what's the lesson? Here's a camera from a prestigious brand. It has lenses of exceptional quality from a company that is second to none. But the product is now obscure. No one talks about it. It has not turned into one of those superheroes of the vintage camera world. Such a product is called a hidden gem. This camera, with 2 lenses and a perfect soft leather case, was £40. This is almost criminal. It shouldn't be possible. Where else can you get a full metal, fully manual camera with Carl Zeiss lenses for this price? Even Rolleiflex are now at least 4 to 5 times this price. I hope soon these Rolleiflex SL35s will follow, once smart users like you discover them. In short, if you see one of these on eBay or in auction houses, don't ignore them because others are ignoring them. You be wise and pick them up in good working condition. So, you 10,000 Rolleiflex fans on this channel, this is your upgrade path to Rollei SL35 or later models. Since this channel is all about heritage, we usually like the first and last of each series. This one is the first. See you with the next video. Subscribe means thank you.